Okay, in this episode, we are speaking to the co-founder of K92 Mining, which has been a fantastic story in the gold and silver stocks and precious metals industry for many, many, many investors, and the now CEO of Zacatecas Silver. And so thank you for joining us today, Bryan, and we'll be discussing gold, silver, where you think it's headed. We'll talk about your new mining stock company. The silver stocks are getting exciting for me personally as an investor. So excited to discuss with you. So make sure for everyone listening that you hit the like button on the side right there or right there. Give us a comment with your silver price prediction right there down below. You know I'm going to be asking Bryan that. And so it's great to see you.
Great, Jake. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so working on a new silver project. Silver to me is the very exciting and big question mark. So give me an idea. There's a lot of people saying that we're starting to get closer and closer to even some commercial shortages. I heard Rick Rule say that recently, that even for big companies like Sprott, it's been getting a little harder. So give us an idea of what you see happening right now in the silver market.
Yes, absolutely, Jake. And it's interesting that you brought up K92 mining. And when we founded K92, it was during a time that nobody was interested in gold. And as a group, we've really focused on trying to not only talk contrarian, but really act contrarian in terms of these cycles. We picked up a great gold asset when nobody liked gold, floated it, and now that microcap situation has become a $1.5 billion company and has created a lot of wealth for early shareholders. It was similar with Zacatecas Silver. We've been looking for silver assets when silver has been relatively obscure and out of favor. And again, we were able to pick up some silver assets when the market seemingly was just generally disinterested in silver. And now that we've launched Zacatecas, we just feel very blessed in terms of timing, because I do concur, we're on the cusp of a major silver bull market. And that silver bull market is starting for a variety of reasons. One, of course, you have the electrification demand that everybody is talking about. Without silver, there are no electric vehicles. Without silver, there are no solar panels. Without silver, there is no Tesla, as many people in the high-tech industry know. But more important to me personally than that industrial demand theme is silver as an investment demand thesis. And to that end, I would note that silver has been money for thousands of years. Silver was money 1,000 years ago, it's money today, and it will be money 1,000 years from now. We're seeing a huge disconnect between silver, actual physical silver, and these various derivative paper silver products. And you allude to Rick Rule's recent comments, and I concur. There's a major difference between physical silver and these paper silver products, and people are starting to see it, starting to understand it. And I think it's sparking some great discussion out there that there are true silver shortages in physical silver that are popping up in this market from time to time.
Yeah, I always say that the only time that the spot price of silver matters to most, or it should matter, is purely at mining stocks and the algos that are involved with the bigger companies. Other than that, it is not the real price of silver or gold. And so let me ask you right now, when you're looking at these kind of macro factors that we're in, right, which is such a ridiculous amount of global debt that it almost doesn't seem real. And to top it off, we've had, these economies globally shut down, which is going to cost obviously a lot of money to keep people afloat. But also once they start doing global infrastructure bills, there's probably going to be a whole nother level of money coming into the system. So we've got this very precarious situation that makes me attracted to alternative assets such as gold, silver, and mining stocks. What's your assessment on what's happening right now from a macroeconomic factors, where it's going, and how that ties into the investment side of silver?
Sure. I think, Jake, that the central bankers and the governments around the world are running scared right now. They're trying to inflate a bubble, and that bubble continues to get larger and larger, but it's really predicated on a lot of hot air. And when that bubble eventually bursts, I don't think this all ends well. And what we have right now globally is quantitative easing infinity, negative to low interest rates. We have fiscal stimulus and monetary stimulus, the likes of which the planet has never seen. And at the end of the day, the music stops. And when the music stops, the paper printing presses that have been running overtime 24/7, that will lead to what I think could be a disaster in terms of these fiat currencies, these paper currencies. And to that end, I want to go back to, personally, as an investor, exposure to gold and silver. Gold and silver have been currencies for thousands of years, as many other fiat currencies have come and gone. Gold and silver are a store of wealth, a hedge against uncertainty, and have been money for thousands of years. So I think every investor should look at gold and silver and consider, or at least discuss with their advisors, what type of component within their portfolio silver and gold ought to take up.
So if you were a betting man, what are you betting on right now here in 2021 when we look at, and I liked your QE Infinity. I was thinking we should rename the banks, the central banks of infinity instead. Might be a good name. But right now we're looking at this type of situation where there's hundreds of millions of people globally that have been pushed into poverty. They don't have jobs. There's a lot of people that are not just 1 month behind on their rent or mortgage, but we're talking maybe even a year behind. What is if you're a betting man, where do you think they're going to throw the cards here? There's a lot of people afraid we're going to have a collapse, and there's other people saying we're going to have hyperinflation, and there's other people saying they're going to be introducing a whole new level of money printing, yield control. What's your assessment, kind of, if you were a betting man? Where do you place the next 12 months or so unfolding, 12 to 24 months?
Sure. I think simply based on the supply and demand situation with silver, electrification, the growing industrial demand for silver, silver is going to go higher in price. That's my personal opinion. The wild card here is the investment demand. And the investment demand for silver is strong. It's growing. But at the same time, I think what's been very important is that over the past several months, more and more mainstream investors are starting to understand that disconnect between paper silver and derivatives of silver versus actual physical silver itself. And that can spark real concern, real worry. And I think that when that reaches a tipping point of understanding, you're going to see silver move in a parabolic, once in a generation type fashion. Now, that's my personal opinion only. What I think is happening out there right now globally is you've had government policies enacted, including these lockdowns around the world, that have financially benefited the top 1%. It has been devastating on the lower socioeconomic rung of the ladder. And that's very sad. These government policies that are in place, including the quantitative easing infinity, the stimulus, both monetary and fiscal, and this low to negative interest rate environment, it is causing an incredible amount of harm out there. And I think that when this ends, like I say, when the music stops or when the bubble bursts, whatever analogy you like to use, it can end very badly. Now, what can we do about it as investors? I think that we can all look at gold, silver, hard assets as a way to potentially protect ourselves to some degree from what I think could just be some real financial chaos out there. And I think that everything points to the government continuing to kick the can here. Nobody even talks about the structural deficits and the rapidly growing debt out there globally right now. But eventually all of this comes home to roost. And when it does, I'm much more comfortable in gold and silver as a currency than I am with many of these paper currencies that are essentially just promises to pay.
Yeah, it's an interesting place to be. And so as someone that owns a silver company, I have to imagine you're forward thinking. What is your personal opinions on where the price of silver can go? I'm sure deciding to continue in the silver market, you've talked to a lot of people. You've also done a lot of analysis and also looked at the global mine supply, how much is going to be used in technology. And so I'd be curious to understand a little bit more about your thoughts with regards to that.
Sure. I think that if you look structurally at the silver market, there's no stopping the technology train that the world is on. There is growing electrification. There is a greening of the economy, and there's increasing use of technology within which silver is just absolutely crucial and critical. Because of that structural dynamic, I do see a very bullish case for silver on industrial demand. And I think over the next 12 months, based on that, you can quite likely see the upside of 15, 20% move in the price of silver itself. Now, all of that gets thrown out of the window because of the investment demand. And when there is a tipping point, when people do realize the real difference between physical silver and paper silver, when they realize that these physical silver shortages are increasingly popping up within the structural silver market as it exists today, there will be a tipping point, and that can move silver in a huge way. So if silver doubles in price in the next 12 to 24 months or triples in price in the next 12 to 24 months, I won't be surprised. It's very tough to predict whether or not that's going to happen or what the tipping point will be that has the market en masse understanding these dynamics. But when the market does understand these dynamics, I think silver can just be a rocket ship higher. Now, with that being said, I always caution people, there are lots of risks in the mining business, in the commodity business, in the exploration business. You have commodity risk. Maybe silver won't move as quickly as we think. You have risk at the exploration level, at the permitting level. All of these things come into play with every mining company out there. So when we look for projects, like we did with K92, like we did with the Zacatecas silver assets, we always look for assets that we think can withstand bear market conditions existing for longer than we believe they ought to. And therefore, we really do focus on projects that we believe have potential for high grade and high margin.
So give me an idea, it's obviously an attractive thesis, silver is, especially when you take in what's happening from a macro level. But give me an idea of what you got going on at Zacatecas and why you decide. I mean, obviously, at least people that are pretty invested in the mining industry, at least you've heard of K92, and it's a great success story. And, founding that, as you said, it's grown tremendously. What made you want to get back in the ball game, and just give us an idea for those that don't know that much about your new project?
Sure. So we spent a couple of years looking for silver assets. We've been very bullish on the price of silver for the last couple of years, while other groups out there in the mining space have seemed relatively disinterested. We looked at a lot of projects around the world and eventually said no to many of those projects. In fact, our chief geologist, who's a PhD geo based out of the UK, he's ex-Ivanhoe, we started to call him within our group Dr. No. And that's because we showed him many, many silver projects that he turned down for various technical reasons. We had an opportunity in Zacatecas, Mexico, which is one of the most prolific silver regions in the world, to acquire a large commanding land position within the district. We got Dr. Wilson, our chief geologist, the information on the project. He completed a lot of due diligence. They completed due diligence on site, going through old technical records, etc. And he came back with not only recommending we move forward with Zacatecas silver, but the geological team came back extremely excited. There is a significant historic silver resource on this project. There are exploration targets all over the property, many of which have never been drilled. So we will go in and, number one, we will seek to confirm and expand the known historic silver resource. We will also start to drill some of these exploration targets. The historic resource of approximately 19.5 million ounces inferred at 153 grams per ton silver, that resource we believe has big potential for expansion along strike and expansion at depth. But outside of that, there are numerous other targets. For example, we've now traced the extension of what we believe to be the world famous Veta Grande vein system onto our property for approximately 3 kilometers. That's been drilled very sporadically in the past, has seen limited exploration on our ground. So that's one example of the big blue sky targets. So with Zacatecas silver, you have the historic resource, an ability to target big expansion of that resource, and then exploration blue sky. And that's why I think Zacatecas has attracted some great silver investors, including, of course, Eric Sprott, who's perhaps the world's best known silver investor. You know, we're fortunate to have Mr. Sprott as an early backer of this company and one of our largest shareholders.
So the thesis of a silver shortage, when you take in the amount that's going to be needed globally, and you know, we had a reduction in the amount of supply that came online in 2020. I think they came out at like 760 million ounces. It's not that much. I mean, with the amount of growth in electric cars, people rarely take into consideration on commodities China's impact on the market. And, you know, people are dropping dead in the street in China due to their air pollution. So, I mean, their government's going to make a big shift towards nuclear electrification. And so you start to go, well, on top of that, you also have the retail investors, because you're also in a precarious macroeconomic situation. And Don Durrett, who's one of my friends, a fantastic researcher in this industry that comes on the show, he says once silver demand goes up from the retailers, another 20%, 30%, 40%, once that starts happening and they start itching into the commercial market, which not that much more needs to happen for that to occur, you get into this interesting situation where a lot more so than gold, in my opinion, due to the real legitimate demand of silver on a level far beyond what most of us comprehend. So how much credence do you give to this idea of a growing silver shortage? It's a similar type of thesis as uranium, which I'm interested in, which is Seems that there's not enough supply for the growing demand. So give us an idea of your personal opinions with regards to this.
Absolutely, Jake. So I think it's very interesting. If you look at copper, for example, you can look at the demand industrially for copper. You can look at the supply, and quantitatively, you can come up with quite an accurate price prediction that has a lot of data in support of that prediction. When you look at gold, it's almost the exact opposite, because gold is a currency, it's a store of wealth, but there's not the serious industrial demand for it like there is for copper. So it's more of a wild card, and you're depending on that investment thesis of currency devaluation, etc. When you look at silver, silver is a true double threat. You've got the industrial demand growing in a big way, and you also have the investment demand. So whereas you look at gold based on investment demand, you look at copper based on industrial demand, silver is a hybrid in that it's a true triple threat with both investment demand and industrial demand now structurally in a place that ought to have silver on the cusp of a major bull market. The electrification and greening theme is a freight train that's not going to be stopped at any time in the near future. The use of high-tech devices like cellular phones, solar, etc., that require silver, that's not going to be stopped at any time in the near future. So I believe you're going to see increasing pressure on the silver market structurally. You're seeing increasing demand, and supply will have a tough time keeping up with the pace of that increasing demand. At the same time, right now, it's very limited number of people like you, Jake, that understand the investment demand thesis for silver. As that understanding grows and there becomes a tipping point of understanding out there in the marketplace, I think it's investment demand that takes silver parabolic. But it is a true double threat metal: growing industrial demand, growing investment demand, and of course, supply constraints.
So whenever I'm talking to, really successful business people in the mining industry like yourself, I'm always interested why one would choose gold or why one would choose silver. So is what you just illustrated earlier why you didn't go after Zacatecas gold exclusively and go after a past producing gold mine? Is that past thesis what made you just say, hey, I think there's a lot more upside in silver? Or give me an idea.
Sure, I'm very bullish on gold. I'm actually quite bullish on copper as well. But silver is very unique. Gold, in terms of an industry, is more crowded than silver, as is copper. There are more groups that have been out there looking for gold assets and copper assets versus silver assets. So number one, as one of the few groups out there looking for good silver assets over the last couple of years, we thought we had a big advantage, and we took advantage of that early mover status through the acquisition of this very large silver land package. Also, if you ask me for a list of gold stocks that I thought were attractive, I can rattle off dozens of gold situations. Likewise with copper. However, with silver, there are relatively few high quality small cap silver situations out there, pure play silver. And therefore, I think that when you start to see a move into the silver miners, into the silver explorers, you're going to see a tidal wave start to build. And eventually, and we're a long way off from this in my personal opinion, but eventually you're going to see too much capital chasing too few good silver situations out there. And for shareholders of situations like Zacatecas, that can just be a phenomenal place to be. So those are a few of the reasons we were very actively searching for a great silver asset.
What inning do you think we're in the precious metals bull market?
I think that the national anthem has just finished. I think we're extremely early. And it's funny, Jake, when I see a placement done on a high quality silver situation or gold situation, and there are big shareholders coming in that get disclosed in those placements, I know most of those people. Right now, it is a very small industry. You're out there talking about silver, but that's a rarity. Right now, we're in a bubble here where there are very few of us paying attention to silver. We think that everybody's paying attention because we live in that bubble. However, the mainstream investor still has not picked up on this silver trade. They still don't understand the silver trade, and we're very early. Right now, you've got smart money in these names. I mentioned Eric Sprott being one of our largest shareholders. That's an example of that. You've got great precious metals funds invested in Zacatecas silver and other good silver situations, but the mainstream public is just not there yet. And I think what you'll see, you've now got great precious metals funds and mining entrepreneurs invested in the space. You'll start to see the generalist funds come into the space. Then you will see the retail public come into the silver sector, and we're just not there yet. We're not even close to being there. And again, I do think ultimately when this bull market really gets steam, it will be a matter of too much capital chasing too few high quality silver names. And for us as early investors in Zacatecas silver, that's just a great situation.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch it because you look at the price not crossing 30, and if you don't understand the market well, then you say, well, the price should be going up, but it's not. But then once you peel under the layers, I talk to so many people obviously now with the channel, and it's been so interesting to see unanimously how long it's taking people to get silver. I mean, dealers really that are basically trying to take delivery off the COMEX to meet supply because they don't even have enough. But obviously there's the issue with availability with regards to that. And I really do think that it makes a perfect storm. But I think that's a really good point that you made, is that we really, I ask people that question a lot, and no one's ever said the anthem just finished. They've always picked an inning. So you fit on the rarity scale there for originality. So you get extra point for that. But one of the things that's interesting about what you said there is you're right. I mean, we're in such early innings of what's going to happen with this monetary system as well. And the amount of people that understand that still don't understand, they're just counterfeiting money in existence is still pretty small. And I think that it's a pretty inspiring and interesting point.
Yes, I think that you're bang on there, Jake. And the fact is that there's just not widespread understanding of the thesis to invest in silver yet. And it will come. I was on Fox News recently to talk about the silver squeeze. When that was happening, Fox Business asked me to come on based on my role at Zacatecas Silver to offer a bit of commentary. And the one thing that I said is that the silver squeeze to me wasn't overly important. What was important about that is that it introduced some new investors to the space. Now, many people introduced to the space at that time and through the silver squeeze movement were traders, and they entered and they exited various names over the span of a few days, and that's fine. But for those of us with a longer term perspective, I do think the importance of that whole silver squeeze discussion was that it brought some new attention to the space, and there will be a few. There'll be a small percentage of the people that looked at silver for the first time via that movement, do their homework, do the work on the sector, and realize that the sector investing in silver equities is extremely compelling and offers a lot of potential reward. And I think as an industry, our job is to just stay head down, focused on our projects, build our business, execute our business plan. But at the same time, when we have the opportunity, we ought to be out there telling the silver story, presenting the facts about the growing demand, presenting the facts about the big gap between physical silver and these paper derivative products. And I think that eventually you get to a point where enough people realize that this investment thesis is very compelling. And that's when we'll start to get some momentum. That could be tomorrow. That could be 2 or 3 months from now. I don't know what triggers that or is a catalyst or what's the ultimate tipping point moment, but it in my personal opinion, it's coming.
So one of the things that Keith Neumeyer said to me one time was that he sat in a room with Samsung and he knows for a fact they're terrified of the shortage and also of hedge funds and such, maybe front running it, people realizing there's more of a shortage. And so I wonder about what will happen long term with the silver market when you're thinking through your business with your team. Do you anticipate that eventually you're going to get offers from tech companies to start trying to buy places with resources out? What's your long-term view on that? And is that part of your plan at Zacatecas is for something like that? Or how do you perceive that?
I think that when you're at this very early stage of a bull market, or what you believe to be on the cusp of a bull market, what a silver entity has to do is stay focused on the ground, head down on their business strategy, move as fast as possible, expanding, confirming their resources, etc., because you want to have your project in the best condition when the bull really starts to charge. And that takes on a couple of different meanings. Number one, of course, we have the stock price, and the stock price generally will move more aggressively and with more momentum during a bull market. But outside of that, you also have bull market conditions from a business perspective. And that means more potential buyers of the silver, the tech companies wanting to get involved at a project level or company level. So all of that stuff is something that I envision happening in the future in the silver industry in general. But as an individual company, all we can do is stay head down, focused on executing our business plan. Let's get this project advanced as quickly and as prudently as possible so that when the silver bull starts to charge, we're ready for it. And we've got our project in the best condition possible. And that's why on the ground, we really are hard charging on the ground. We will be looking to confirm and expand that known resource. We'll be looking to grow it at depth along strike. We'll also be drilling concurrently on some of the exploration targets. We want to move this as fast as possible. And if you flash back to the early days when we acquired the Kanantu asset in K92 mining, it was an ugly time in the gold space, and we stayed very focused. The best time to grow a business is when the rest of the world is interested in different sectors, because ultimately when the light comes into the sector that your business is involved within, you want to have really grown that business at that juncture as fast as possible. So that's our goal at Zacatecas, is just to work hard on the ground, confirm, expand, grow, and be ready for this silver market coming up. And we always plan for, when you look at a business plan in the space, I think you have to plan for bear market conditions. You have to plan for silver prices or gold prices staying lower longer than you expect them to. And that gives you a buffer. And I think it's important to do that. when at the same time being inherently very bullish on the space in general.
Fair enough. It's obviously very strategic, which I guess is why you've been able to be so successful in the past as well. So let me ask, right now there's and it's a part that I think a lot of our audiences come to really like is, we talk silver, we talk mining stocks, but also get to know you and your philosophies a little bit more. And I'd be curious, right now, we've got a lot of people that are unemployed, a lot of people looking for more money, for additional incomes. There's a lot of people that are looking to significantly grow that for a lot of reasons. And then, we talk a lot about on this channel about overall investment business philosophies. And so I think it's got a lot of people thinking about additional sources of income, businesses, other ways they continue to grow. So you've been someone that's been able to become, very successful. I mean, to found a company like K92, you do pretty well for yourself. So let me ask you, why do you think you've been able to succeed on a high level? And what do you think are some of the most important philosophies to apply for someone that's looking to take their business or their finances to the next level right now to ensure their own freedoms?
Sure. I appreciate that, Jake. One of the things about my personal growth in this business has been that I've surrounded myself with great technical people, and it's really the geologists and the mining engineers, the operators on the ground that grow value. I have a great role in the capital markets in that I get to get out and talk to various institutions and investors about what we're doing on the ground, but it's really those people on the ground that are building these companies so successfully. As far as the larger macro picture, I'm quite worried as a citizen that we're on a very difficult path, not only here in Canada and the United States, but throughout Europe. There is more and more government intervention in our daily lives, in the economy, and there's a growing reliance on government in a large segment of the population. And I think that what government is doing out there, the out of control deficit spending, the out of control unchecked stimulus, the ability or the attempt to keep interest rates in this negative to very low realm. Ultimately, this hurts the people that need a hand up the most. And I think that what you're going to see is there will be growing disparity. There will unfortunately and sadly be a growing gap between the poor and the rich. And all of that creates some incredible societal tension. I don't know from a large picture perspective what the root out of that is. I think that governments and central bankers are taking us down and have been taking us down a path that could be a real disaster. Personally, how do we protect ourselves? I think that gold and silver are a part of that. Hard assets are a part of that. So I encourage everybody to talk with their advisors and really look at gold and silver and how gold and silver, physical, as well as the equities, can provide some protection against what I think will be very challenging overall conditions around the world over the next couple of years going forward.
So last couple question, what is the most important success philosophy that has aided you in life? You said surrounding yourself with the right team, especially in an industry like that. It sounds like it can go very, very, very far if you focus on that. Is there anything else that's been a valuable component, or when someone's listening and they say, well, how do I make sure that I get on the other side of this wealth transfer? We, of course, have especially silver as a valuable opportunity. We have surrounding ourselves with the right peoples. What would you say when you look at what you've accomplished in business from a mentality perspective that has allowed you to accomplish this?
I think from a mentality perspective, Jake, it's very important to shut the day-to-day noise out and stay focused. And because we're publicly traded, there is a lot of noise. And in any of these entities, what I've found is that many people invest based on emotion. And the share price goes up 25 cents on a day, and we're heroes. And you can see that in the chat rooms, etc. The share price goes down 25 cents the next day, and we're absolutely horrible. And there's that noise, and there's the constant noise back and forth. And there are always going to be naysayers on any project, and people will try to pick apart holes on projects. And we've seen it with every company we've ever built. As a leader within the group, we have to stay head down focused on executing the business plan. Whether the share price goes up 10 cents tomorrow or down 10 cents tomorrow doesn't really matter in the big picture. And we have to cut the noise off, cut the distraction off that's out there, and stay focused on our goal and executing our business plan. We put a plan in place with Zacatecas Silver that I think will allow us to be extremely successful with this company. As I say, there are always risks investing in this space, but I think we put ourselves on a path to give ourselves a big chance at potential success. Along the way, there are always bumps in the road, and there is always a lot of noise. There's media noise. There's now social media noise in the world that we live in today. There are lots of potential distractions. As leaders, we have to stay focused on executing the business plan and not get distracted by all of the abundant noise and activity around us. Beautiful.
That's fantastic. Turning the volume down button so we can focus on the very few things we can still control. It was a pleasure to have you on today, Bryan. For anyone that is interested, we'll have your website link to Zacatecas Silver right there down below. Give us a final goodbye. Let us know where we could find Zacatecas Silver for those that were previously unaware of it. Canada and OTC, or where can we find out more besides your website, which I'll put down below?
Sure. Outside of Zacatecas Silver, we have all of our public filings on cedar.com. Of course, Zacatecas Silver trades on the TSX Venture, the symbol ZAC. And when we have our OTC QX listing, we'll let everybody know. I would anticipate that'll happen in the next few weeks.
Awesome. Exciting stuff. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on. For everyone listening, please make sure that you hit the like button and give us a comment down below and let us know your price prediction for silver in 2021. Bryan, what's our price prediction for 2021 silver?
$38.
All right, cool. I love it. All right, so for everyone listening, thank you for being here again today. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, bell notification right there down below. We will have the information for Zacatecas, and thank you for joining.
Thanks, Jake.